The morning sun cast long shadows across the research outpost as Dr. Hyunwoo Park checked his equipment one more time. The planet Kepler 442b was quiet today, with only the soft hum of machinery and the distant whistle of wind through the crystal canyons. He had been studying the strange plant life here for 3 months now, and every day brought new discoveries. "Hyunwoo, you need to see this," called Dr. Nari Kim from the communications room. Her voice carried an edge of excitement that made him look up from his microscope. He walked over to find Nari staring at her screens with wide eyes. Captain Taemin Lee stood behind her, his arms crossed and his face serious. The young engineer, Minho, was there too, holding a cup of coffee and looking confused. "What is it?" Hyunwoo asked. Nari pointed to the display. "I picked up a distress signal about 20 minutes ago. It's not human, and it's not from any known Earth colony." The signal appeared as a series of strange patterns on the screen. Even without understanding the language, Hyunwoo could hear the panic in the electronic voice that came through the speakers. "Where is it coming from?" he asked. "The Crystal Canyon's about 15 kilometers north of here," Taemin said. "Long range. Sensors show wreckage. Something crashed there." Hyunwoo felt his heart race. In all his years as a xenobiologist, he had never encountered alien life. Earth had been sending out research teams for decades, but they had never found anything more than simple bacteria and plants. "We have to go," he said immediately. Taemin shook his head. "Protocol says we wait for backup from Earth Command. First contact situations require military support." "That could take weeks," Hyunwoo argued. "By then, whoever is out there might be dead." Dr. Rina Yoon appeared in the doorway, her medical bag already in hand. "I heard the signal too. If someone is hurt, they need help now." Minho set down his coffee and nodded. "The maintenance crawler can handle the canyon terrain. I can have it ready in 10 minutes. Taemin looked around at his team. They were scientists, not soldiers, but they were also the only humans on this planet. "Against my better judgment," he said slowly, "we go, but we take weapons and we stay in constant radio contact." An hour later, their 6-wheeled crawler bounced across the rocky landscape toward the canyon. The crystal formations grew taller as they traveled north, casting rainbow patterns across the ground where the sunlight hit them. The distress signal grew stronger as they approached. Nari had managed to isolate some of the sounds, but the language was completely alien. "I think it's a name," she said, listening through her headphones. "Keth. The voice keeps saying Keth." "Probably the pilot," Taemin said, checking his rifle, for the 3rd time. When they reached the crash site, they all fell silent. The alien ship was unlike anything they had ever seen. It was organic-looking, with smooth curves and what looked like living tissue stretched over a metal frame. Parts of it were still smoking from the crash. "My God," whispered Rina, "it's beautiful." They approached carefully, Taemin in the lead with his weapon ready. The ship was about the size of a small Earth fighter, but the design was completely different. Instead of hard angles and straight lines, everything flowed together like it had grown rather than been built. "There," Minho pointed to a section of the ship that had been torn open. "I can see movement inside." Hyunwoo stepped forward, his scientific curiosity overcoming his caution. Through the gap in the hull, he could see a figure trapped under twisted metal. The being was roughly humanoid but smaller, with pale blue skin and long, delicate limbs. "Keth," came a weak voice from inside the ship. The alien had seen them. Then the creature began to scream. It was not a scream of pain, though the alien was clearly injured. It was a scream of absolute terror. The being thrashed against the metal pinning, it down, its large eyes fixed on the humans with pure fear. "No, no, no," the alien cried in broken English. "Deathworlders, apex hunters, run, please run." The humans looked at each other in confusion. Hyunwoo took another step forward, and the alien's screaming grew louder. "Reapers," it sobbed. "The Reapers found me. Run before they kill you too." "I think it's afraid of us," Nari said quietly. "But why?" asked Minho. "We're trying to help." Rina pushed past Taemin, her medical training taking over. "It doesn't matter why. It's hurt and scared." She knelt down near the opening in the ship. "Hello," she said softly. "My name is Rina. We want to help you." The alien, Keth, pressed itself back against the far wall of the cockpit. "Monsters," it whispered. "Planet killers. Why do you not kill me?" "Because you need help," Rena said simply. She held up her medical bag. "I'm a doctor. I can fix your injuries." Keth stared at her with confusion. "Doctors? Reapers do not heal. Reapers only destroy." Hyun-woo slowly approached the other side of the ship. "We're not here to hurt you, Keth. We heard your distress signal and came to help." "Impossible," Keth said, but its voice was weaker now. "Humans are the terror of the galaxy. All species know this. You consume worlds and leave nothing behind." "I think there's been a misunderstanding," Nari said. She had been recording everything on her tablet. "What do you know about humans?" Keth's breathing was becoming labored. "Stories, warnings, the species that fought the frontier wars. The ones who turn planets to glass, the apex predators who kill for sport." Taemin slowly set down his weapon and raised his hands. "We're not warriors. We're scientists. We study plants and rocks and try to learn about the universe." "Lies," Keth whispered, but doubt crept into its voice. "Then why do you not kill me? Why do you speak softly? Why does the healer approach with medicine instead of poison?" Rena was now close enough to see Keth's injuries. The alien had a deep cut on its arm and what looked like a broken leg. "Because that's what people do," she said. "When someone is hurt, you help them." "Even enemies?" Keth asked. "Especially enemies," Hyun-woo said. "That's how enemies become friends." For a long moment, Keth said nothing. Then, very quietly, it spoke. "I am dying. The crash damaged my life support. If you are truly healers and not hunters, please make it quick." Rena looked back at her team. "We need to get the metal off him and get him back to the outpost. I can treat his injuries there." "It could be dangerous," Taemin warned. "We don't know anything about alien biology." "Then we learn," Hyun-woo said. "That's what we're here for." Minho was already examining the twisted metal. "I can cut through this with the plasma torch from the crawler. Give me 5 minutes." As Minho worked, Rena talked softly to Keth, explaining what they were doing. The alien still seemed terrified, but it had stopped screaming. Instead, it watched them with a mixture of fear and fascination. "Your species confuses me," Keth said as Minho carefully cut away the debris. "The galaxy fears humans above all others, yet you risk yourselves for a stranger." "Maybe the galaxy doesn't know humans as well as it thinks," Nari suggested. When they finally freed Keth from the wreckage, the alien was barely conscious. Rena quickly stabilized its injuries while Taemin and Hyun-woo carefully lifted it onto a stretcher. As they loaded Keth into the crawler for the trip back to the outpost, the alien grabbed Hyun-woo's arm with surprising strength. "Why?" it whispered. "Why do you save me?" Hyun-woo looked down at the small, frightened being. "Because that's what friends do. And I think we're going to be friends, Keth." The alien's large eyes filled with something that might have been hope. "I do not understand your species at all," it said softly. "That's okay." Hyun-woo smiled. "We're still trying to understand ourselves." Keth woke up in what looked like a human medical facility. The walls were white and clean, and strange machines beeped softly around the bed. For a moment, panic filled its chest. Was this a torture chamber? A research lab where the humans would study it before killing it? But then Dr. Rena appeared with a gentle smile, checking the bandages on Keth's arm. "Good morning," she said softly. "How are you feeling?" Keth tried to sit up but winced in pain. You healed me?" "Of course," Rena said, adjusting the pillows behind Keith's back. "Your leg was broken and you had lost a lot of blood, but you'll be fine in a few days." "I do not understand," Keth whispered. "Why do the galaxy's most feared predators care for their prey?" Rena looked confused. "Predators? We're scientists. We study things to learn about them, not to hurt them." Dr. Nari Kim entered the room carrying a tablet and a steaming cup of tea. "I've been working on translating more of your language," she said to Keth. I hope you don't mind that I recorded our conversation yesterday. Keth stared at her. You study my words? Languages are fascinating, Nari explained, sitting down in a chair beside the bed. Each one tells us about the culture and history of the people who speak it. Your language has some beautiful concepts that don't exist in human languages. You find beauty in my words? Keth asked, its voice filled with wonder. Very much so. Nari smiled. Would you like to tell me about your people? We know so little about other species. Over the next hour, Keth slowly began to share its story. The Villani were a peaceful species who lived on a world rich in crystal formations similar to those found on Kepler 442b. They were artists and philosophers, creating beautiful music and poetry with their crystal technology. But then the Thektar Empire came, Keth said, its voice growing sad. They wanted our crystals for their weapons. When we refused to give them up, they declared us enemies of the Empire. So you were running away? Nari asked gently. Yes. I was carrying important cultural data to a safe colony when my ship failed. I thought I would die alone on this world. Keth looked at Rena. I never expected to be saved by the species that all others fear. What exactly do other species say about humans? Dr. Hyunwoo asked as he entered the room with a tray of food. Keth's eyes went wide when it saw the meal. Fresh fruit, vegetables, and what looked like some kind of grain. You bring me food? You need to eat to get better, Hyunwoo said simply, setting the tray down. I wasn't sure what Villani eat, so I brought a variety. Keth picked up a piece of fruit with shaking hands. The stories say that humans are called the Reapers. They say you come from a death world so terrible that it created the perfect killing machines. The stories say you destroyed entire civilizations during the Frontier Wars. The Frontier Wars? Hyunwoo frowned. Those were defensive actions. Earth colonies were being attacked by hostile species. We only fought to protect our people. But the stories say you turn planets to glass, that you hunt other species for sport, that you eat the flesh of your enemies. Keth took a small bite of the fruit and its eyes widened. This is delicious. Nari and Hyunwoo exchanged glances. I think the stories might have gotten a bit exaggerated over time, Nari said carefully. Young Minho appeared in the doorway, holding a small potted plant. I brought you something, he said shyly to Keth. It's from our garden. I thought you might like it since you said your people love plants. Keth stared at the small flowering plant in amazement. You give me a gift? It's just a little flower, Minho said, blushing, but it smells nice and the colors are pretty. Keth took the plant with trembling hands. In its culture, giving someone a living plant was one of the highest honors. This is a sacred gift among my people. Why do you give me something so precious? Minho looked confused. It's just a flower. I have lots more in the garden. I thought it might make you feel better. Make me feel better? Keth repeated the words as if they were foreign. You seek to bring me comfort? Well, yeah, Minho said. Being hurt and scared is awful. Everyone deserves to feel better. Over the following days, Keth watched the humans carefully. It saw Dr. Rena feeding injured birds that had flown into the outpost windows. It watched Hyunwoo gently moving insects out of his way instead of crushing them. It observed Taemin training with weapons but never using them except for target practice. Your species is very strange, Keth told Nari one evening as she brought it dinner. How so? Nari asked, settling into her usual chair. The galaxy says, you are monsters but you act like protectors. You heal the injured, feed the hungry, and give gifts to strangers. These are not the actions of predators. Nari was quiet for a moment. What if the galaxy is wrong about us? Then the galaxy has been living in fear of the wrong thing, Keth said softly. That night, Keth lay awake thinking about everything it had learned. The humans had access to powerful weapons and technology that could easily destroy planets. But instead of using that power to conquer, they used it to explore and learn. Instead of taking what they wanted by force, they offered friendship and cooperation. The next morning, Minho brought Keth a new gift, a a small music player with human songs. I noticed you like music, he said. These are some of my favorites. As HFY, Keth listened to the gentle melodies. It began to understand something important. The humans were not the monsters of galactic legend. They were something far more dangerous to an empire built on fear and conquest. They were compassionate. Minho, Keth said as the young human was about to leave. Yeah? Thank you for showing me that the stories were wrong. Minho smiled. What, stories? The ones that said your species has no soul. That afternoon, long-range sensors detected something that made everyone's blood run cold. Captain Taman burst into the medical bay where Keth was learning to walk again with Rena's help. We have a problem, he said grimly. 12 Thektar battle cruisers just entered the system. They're heading straight for us. The color drained from Keth's face. They found me. The Empire has come. What do they want? Hyunwoo asked. Me, Keth said simply. They will demand that you surrender me to them. If you refuse, they will destroy this entire outpost. Rena helped Keth sit down on the bed. How long do we have? Taman checked his tablet. They'll be in weapons range in 6 hours. Then we need to call for backup from Earth, Nari said. The nearest Earth fleet is 3 weeks away, Taman replied. We're on our own. Keth looked around at the humans who had saved its life. You must give me to them. I will not let you die for me. Like hell, Minho said fiercely. You're our friend now, we don't abandon friends. But you cannot fight an entire battle fleet, Keth protested. Hyunwoo smiled grimly. Maybe we don't have to fight them. Maybe we can talk to them. Talk? Keth stared at him in shock. You want to negotiate with the Thektar Empire? Why not? Hyunwoo shrugged. They're people just like us, and people can usually find common ground if they try hard enough. Keth could only shake its head in amazement. Even facing certain death, the humans wanted to try diplomacy first. The galaxy had no idea what it was dealing with. These humans were not the monsters of legend. They were something much more terrifying to tyrants and bullies. They were hope. The massive Thektar battle fleet hung in space like dark metal thunderclouds. 12 enormous warships, each one capable of destroying a small moon. Their hulls were covered in weapon ports and armor plating that looked like the scales of some terrible beast. Commander Vexkar stood on the bridge of his flagship, studying the small human outpost on the planet below. He was tall even for a Thektar, with gray-green skin and eyes like black glass. Scars covered his arms from countless battles, and his uniform displayed the medals of a dozen conquered worlds. Such a tiny target, said his second-in-command. Officer Zaltok, why do we need an entire fleet for one research station? Vexkar's mandibles clicked together in what might have been amusement. Because it is defended by humans, you fool. The Deathworlders who taught the galaxy the meaning of fear. But there are only 5 of them, Zaltok protested. 5 humans can destroy armies, Vexkar replied. I have read the reports from the Frontier Wars. Their species fights like demons and never surrenders. We take no chances. Down on the planet, Captain Taman Lee watched the enemy fleet through his telescope. The ships were so large they blotted out stars. He had never seen so much firepower aimed at such a small target. Incoming transmission, Nari called from her communication station. The main screen flickered to life, showing Commander Vexkar's scarred face. When he spoke, his voice was like grinding stone. Humans of the research outpost. You are harboring a Vellani terrorist named Keth. Surrender the prisoner immediately, or we will destroy your facility and everyone in it. Taman stepped forward. Commander, we request permission to speak with you about this situation. Vexkar's eyes narrowed. There is nothing to discuss. You have 1 hour to comply or face the consequences. The individual you're looking for is not a terrorist, Doctor, Hyunwoo said, joining Taman in front of the screen. Keth is a refugee seeking safety from persecution. Lies, Vexkar snarled. The Vellani are enemies of the Empire. All enemies must be eliminated. What if we could prove that Keth poses no threat to your empire? Nari asked. Vexkar was quiet. for a moment studying the humans. In all his years of conquest, no enemy had ever tried to negotiate for a prisoner. They usually begged for their own lives or tried to fight. These humans were different. "You have 6 hours," he said finally. "Prepare your evidence. But know this: if you try to deceive me, I will turn your world to ash." The transmission ended, leaving the humans in tense silence. 6 hours, Taemin said grimly. "That's not much time." "It's enough," Hyunwoo replied. "Minho, can you prepare a secure communication channel? We need to show them who Keth really is." "Already working on it," Minho said, his fingers flying over his keyboard. "I can give you a protected video link in 20 minutes. Keth sat in the corner of the room, its body shaking with fear. "You should not do this for me. Commander Vexkar has destroyed entire colonies. He will not listen to reason." "Everyone listens to reason eventually," Dr. Rena said gently. "Sometimes they just need help hearing it." 3 hours later, Vexkar materialized in the outpost's meeting room via hologram. He appeared with 2 of his officers, all of them armed, and ready for trouble. What they found instead was a simple table set with chairs and what looked like a meal. "What is this?" Vexkar demanded. "Dinner," Hyunwoo said simply. "We thought you might be hungry after your long journey." The Tektar commander stared at the food in confusion. In his experience, enemies either cowered in fear or attacked with desperate fury. They did not offer hospitality. "This is a trick," Officer Zaltok whispered. If it is a very strange one," Vexkar replied. Dr. Nari gestured to the chairs. "Please sit. We have much to discuss." Reluctantly, the Tektar officers took their seats. Vexkar kept his hand near his weapon, but the humans seemed completely relaxed. "First," Hyunwoo said, "let us show you who Keth really is." A holographic display appeared above the table, showing images of Vellani culture. Beautiful crystal cities, peaceful gatherings, and artistic creations that took the breath away. "The Vellani are artists and philosophers," Nari explained. "They have never attacked anyone or threatened any other species. Their only crime was refusing to give up their sacred crystals for weapons. Sacred crystals make excellent power sources for military equipment," Vexkar said coldly. "They also make beautiful music and art," Rena added. "Would you destroy the galaxy's greatest artists for the sake of slightly better weapons?" "Art does not build empires," Vexkar replied. "Maybe not," Minho said quietly. "But it builds something better. It builds hope." Keth entered the room slowly, still recovering from its injuries. When it saw the Tektar commander, it trembled but did not run. "Keth," Vexkar said, his voice filled with menace. "The terrorist finally shows itself." "I am not a terrorist," Keth said, its voice barely above a whisper. "I am a keeper of stories. I preserve my people's history and culture." "You fled from imperial questioning. That makes you a criminal." "I fled from imperial destruction," Keth replied with more strength. "You wanted to erase my entire people from existence." Vexkar was quiet for a moment. "The empire requires order. Dissent cannot be tolerated." "Is art dissent?" Hyunwoo asked. "Is music rebellion? Is the desire to preserve one's culture an act of war?" "When it interferes with imperial expansion, yes." Captain Taemin leaned forward. "Commander, what kind of empire destroys beauty to create fear?" "A strong one," Vexkar answered, but his voice lacked conviction. Rena stood up and walked to a wall display. "Let me show you something else." She activated a video feed showing the outpost's daily life over the past few days. There was Hyunwoo carefully tending to alien plants, Nari translating Vellani poetry, Minho building a small garden for Keth to enjoy. "These are the legendary human predators," she said. "Look at them. Do they seem like monsters to you?" Vexkar watched the footage in growing confusion. He saw Minho gently helping Keth learn to walk again. He saw Rena feeding injured creatures. He saw humans and alien working together in perfect harmony. The report said humans were savage killers, Officer Zaltok whispered. Reports can be wrong, Nari said. Stories grow in the telling. What might have started as accounts of human soldiers defending their homes became legends of unstoppable monsters. But the frontier wars, Vexkar began, were defensive actions. Taman said firmly. We fought to protect our colonies from aggressive species. We never started those conflicts. Vexkar studied Keth, who was now sitting peacefully beside Minho. The young human was showing the alien how to operate a music player, both of them smiling at the gentle melodies. I have conquered 17 worlds, Vexkar said slowly. On every one, the defenders fought me with hatred and fear. They cursed my name and swore vengeance, but you? He looked around at the humans. You offer me food and try to show me beauty. Because you're not our enemy, Hyunwoo said. You're just someone who's been told the wrong story about us. And about your own empire, Rena added gently. What if there was another way? What if instead of conquering worlds, you could make allies of them? Vexkar's communicator suddenly erupted with angry voices. His officers back on the fleet were growing impatient. Commander, came a harsh voice. Why do you delay? Destroy the Deathworlders and take the prisoner. I am conducting negotiations, Vexkar replied. Negotiations? The voice was filled with disgust. You negotiate with humans? Have you forgotten what they are capable of? Vexkar looked around the table at the peaceful scene before him. Perhaps I am beginning to remember what they are truly capable of. Sir, I must protest, Zaltok said urgently. High Command will not approve of this weakness. Is seeking understanding weakness? Keth asked suddenly. Is choosing peace over war a sign of failure? The Empire believes so, Vexkar said sadly. Then maybe, Minho said with the simple wisdom of youth. The Empire needs to learn a new way of thinking. Before anyone could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the outpost. On the main screen, they could see several Thektar ships breaking formation and moving into attack positions. What is happening? Vexkar demanded. A new voice came through the communicator, cold and ruthless. Commander Vexkar, you are relieved of duty for collaborating with the enemy. Colonel Thaxmore assumes command. All units, prepare to fire on the planet. Vexkar's face went pale. Thaxmore, you cannot do this. I am still in command. Not anymore. Old friend, your weakness has finally caught up with you. The humans looked at each other grimly. They had 6 hours to make peace, but the hardliners in the Thektar fleet had decided that 6 minutes was too long. So much for diplomacy, Taman said, reaching for his weapon. Wait, Hyunwoo said, holding up his hand. We're not done yet. He turned to Vexkar. Commander, you have a choice to make. You can let your empire destroy everything beautiful in the galaxy, or you can help us find another way. Vexkar stared at him. What are you asking? I'm asking you to do what humans do best, Hyunwoo smiled. I'm asking you to hope. Colonel Thaxmore's voice crackled through the communication system like breaking glass. All ships target the research facility. Prepare to demonstrate what happens to those who harbor enemies of the Empire. Commander Vexkar stood in the human outpost, watching his own fleet prepare to destroy him. His scarred hands clenched into fists. Thaxmore, stand down immediately. I am still your superior officer. Not anymore, came the cold reply. High Command has declared you compromised by human influence. Your career is over, Vexkar. The weapons on 8 of the 12 Thektar ships began to glow with deadly energy. On the planet below, the small group of humans and their alien friend faced annihilation from the most powerful military force in the galaxy. How long do we have? Captain Taman asked, checking his own weapons. 3 minutes until they're in optimal firing position, Minho reported from his console. Dr. Rena moved to the medical station and began preparing emergency supplies. If we survive the first strike, there will be wounded to treat. But Dr. Hyunwoo was not preparing for battle. Instead, he walked calmly to the communication console and began typing commands. What are you doing? Vexkar demanded. Something that humans do better than anyone else in the galaxy, Hyunwoo replied. We're going to change the rules of the game. This is not a game, Vexcar snarled. Those are Imperial warships preparing to kill us all. Yes, Hyunwoo said peacefully. And we're going to invite them to join us for dinner. Everyone in the room stared at him as if he had lost his mind. You want to invite them to dinner? Keth whispered. While they prepare to destroy us? Why not? Hyunwoo shrugged. It worked with Commander Vexakar. I am one person, Vexakar protested. Thaxmore commands an entire battle fleet. Made up of individual people, Dr. Nari added, understanding Hyunwoo's plan. People with families and hopes and fears just like everyone else. Minho's fingers flew over his keyboard. I can patch us into their fleet communication network. We can broadcast to every ship at once. Do it, Hyunwoo said. Taemin grabbed his arm. This is insane. You can't negotiate with fanatics. We're not negotiating with fanatics, Hyunwoo replied gently. We're talking to people who have been told they're fanatics. There's a difference. The main screen flickered to life, showing Colonel Thaxmore on the bridge of his command ship. He was younger than Vexcar, but with the same gray-green skin and black eyes. Unlike Vexcar, however, his face showed no scars of battle. He was a political officer, not a warrior. What is this? Thaxmore demanded when he saw the transmission. A dinner invitation, Hyunwoo said pleasantly. We were hoping you and your crews might join us for a meal before you destroy us all. Thaxmore's mandibles clicked in confusion. Are you mocking me, human? Not at all. We simply believe that people should get to know each other before they kill each other. It seems more civilized that way. Civilized? Thaxmore laughed harshly. You are Deathworlders, savage predators who know nothing of civilization. Really? Nari stepped into view of the camera. Tell me, Colonel, what do you know about human civilization? I know you destroyed the Altair colonies. I know you turned the Vegan homeworld into a wasteland. I know you are the terror of civilized space. Do you know that we have created art that moves people to tears? Nari asked. Do you know that we write poetry about the beauty of distant stars? Do you know that our children learn songs about peace and friendship? Thaxmore's eyes narrowed. Propaganda. Lies meant to deceive us. Then let us prove it, Rena said, joining the conversation. Look at this. She activated a holographic display showing Earth. Green continents, blue oceans, white clouds swirling in peaceful patterns. Cities that gleamed like jewels. Forests full of life. Children playing in parks under golden sunlight. This is our homeworld, Rena explained. Does it look like the planet of savage monsters? For a moment, Thaxmore said nothing. The image of Earth was breathtakingly beautiful, nothing like the dark, twisted world he had imagined as the birthplace of galactic terrors. Images can be falsified, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Can experiences be falsified? Minho asked. He gestured to Keth, who stepped forward nervously. I am Keth of the Vallani, the small alien said. 1 week ago, I believed humans were monsters. I crashed on this world expecting to die at the hands of savage predators. And? Thaxmore asked impatiently. They saved my life. They healed my wounds, fed me when I was hungry, and gave me gifts when I was lonely. They are treating me like family. You lie to protect them. Why would I lie? Keth asked simply. If they were truly monsters, I would already be dead. Instead, I am standing here whole and healthy, defended by people who owe me nothing. Thaxmore glanced around his own bridge. His officers were listening to the conversation with growing interest. Some of them looked confused, others thoughtful. This changes nothing, Thaxmore declared. My orders are clear. The humans must be eliminated. What if your orders are wrong? Commander Vexcar asked, stepping into view. Vexcar, you have been declared a traitor to the Empire. Have I? Or have I simply learned something that the Empire doesn't want to know? And what is that? Vexcar looked around at the humans who had welcomed him as a guest instead of treating him as an enemy. I have learned that strength comes in many forms, Thaxamore. The humans could have tried to fight us. They have weapons that could hurt our ships. Instead, they offered us food and tried to show us beauty. Weakness, Thaxamore spat. Is it? Vexcar asked. Is it weak to choose understanding over violence? Is it weak to seek friendship instead of conquest? On the various ship bridges throughout the fleet, Thektar soldiers began to murmur among themselves. Many of them had families back home, children who would grow up in a galaxy shaped by endless war and fear. The idea that there might be another way was both terrifying and hopeful. Sir, one of Thaxamore's officers said quietly, perhaps we should consider what? Thaxamore snapped. That maybe these humans are not what we expected. They are exactly what High Command told us they were. High Command told us many things, the officer replied carefully. They told us the Villani were dangerous terrorists, but the one we see appears to be a peaceful scholar. Appearances can deceive. Dr. Hyunwoo stepped forward. Colonel Thaxamore, I have a proposal for you. I do not negotiate with Deathworlders. I'm not asking you to negotiate. I'm asking you to test us. Test you how? Send down a small group of your soldiers. Let them see for themselves what kind of people we are. If we are truly the monsters of legend, your people will report back, and you can destroy us with a clear conscience. And if you are not, then maybe it's time for the galaxy to learn a new story about humanity. Thaxamore was quiet for a long time. Around the fleet, soldiers listened and waited. Many of them had grown tired of endless conquest and destruction. The idea of peace seemed like an impossible dream, but it was a beautiful dream nonetheless. You would trust your lives to my soldiers? Thaxamore asked finally. We trust our lives to the basic goodness that exists in all people, Hyunwoo replied, even Imperial soldiers. Sir, another officer said, what do we have to lose? If they kill our people, we destroy them as planned. If they don't, well, maybe High Command needs to hear a different report. Thaxamore stared at the peaceful scene. On his screen, humans and aliens sitting together like old friends. It was not what he had expected to find. Very well, he said finally. I will send down a small team, but if any harm comes to them, no harm will come to them, Rena promised. You have my word as a doctor, and my word as a scientist, Hyunwoo added. And my word as a soldier, Taemin said, surprising everyone. Thaxamore studied their faces. In all his years serving the Empire, he had never seen enemies offer such promises with such sincerity. Prepare a shuttle, he ordered his crew. Select 6 volunteers for a reconnaissance mission. Sir, his communications officer said urgently, I'm receiving multiple transmissions from the other ships in the fleet. What kind of transmissions? Request to volunteer for the mission, sir. It seems everyone wants to meet the humans. Thaxamore looked around his bridge in amazement. His soldiers, trained killers all, were volunteering to have dinner with the galaxy's most feared predators. This is highly irregular, he muttered. Sir, said his youngest officer, barely more than a recruit. Maybe irregular is exactly what we need. As the first Thektar shuttle prepared to descend to the planet, soldiers throughout the fleet watched their screens with anticipation. They were about to discover whether everything they had been told about humans was true, or whether they had been living in fear of the wrong thing entirely. The first Thektar shuttle landed in the outpost courtyard just as the sun was setting. 6 Imperial soldiers stepped out, their weapons ready and their eyes scanning for threats. They had volunteered for what might be a suicide mission, but they came anyway. Leading them was Sergeant Kolvar, a veteran of 12 campaigns. His armor bore the scars of countless battles, and his eyes held the wariness of someone who had seen too much death. Behind him came 5 younger soldiers, all of them nervous but determined. Dr. Hyunwoo walked out to meet them with his hands open and visible. Welcome to our home, he said simply. The soldiers tensed, expecting some kind of trap. Instead, Hyunwoo smiled and gestured toward the outpost's main building. Dinner is almost ready. We hope you're hungry. Sergeant Kolvar stared at him in confusion. You prepared food for us? Of course, Dr. Rena said, appearing beside Hyunwoo. You're our guests. The youngest soldier, barely out of training, whispered to his sergeant. Sir, this doesn't match any of our briefings. Stay alert, Kolvar replied, but his voice lacked its usual edge. As they entered the dining hall, the Thektar soldiers saw something that shocked them. The table was set for 15 people. Not just humans and the Villani refugee, but places for every member of their own team as well. You were expecting us? Kolvar asked. We were hoping for you, Nari corrected. Gently, there's a difference. Commander Vexkar stood at the head of the table, his scarred face grave. Sergeant, I know this seems strange. It seemed strange to me too. But these humans are not what we were told. Sir, with respect, High Command says you've been compromised. Maybe, I have been, Vexkar admitted. Compromised by kindness, corrupted by compassion, infected by hope. Young Minho appeared from the kitchen carrying steaming dishes. I wasn't sure what Thektar liked to eat, he said to the soldiers. So I made a little bit of everything. The sight of this young human cooking for them left the soldiers speechless. One of them, a female named Valnari, stepped forward cautiously. You cooked for us? Well, yeah. Minho blushed. That's what you do when people come to visit. Over. The next hour, something remarkable happened. The Thektar soldiers slowly began to relax. They found themselves sitting at a table with their supposed enemies, sharing food and stories. Dr. Nari asked them about their families. Dr. Rena showed them pictures of Earth's wildlife. Captain Taman shared tales of his military service that had nothing to do with killing and everything to do with protecting people. This is not possible, Valnari whispered to her sergeant. Humans are supposed to be monsters. Maybe, Kolvar said quietly, watching Minho help Keth with his injured leg. We were told the wrong story. The dinner continued peacefully until alarms suddenly blared throughout the outpost. On the main screen, they could see that 4 of the hardline ships in the Thektar fleet were moving into attack formation. What's happening? Sergeant Kolvar demanded, reaching for his weapon. Colonel Thaxmore's voice crackled through the communication system, but now it was filled with panic. All ships, we have a mutiny situation. Hardline officers are attempting to take control of the fleet. Sir, what are your orders? Valnari asked. Before Kolvar could answer, another voice cut through the channel. It was General Thekran, the most ruthless commander in the Imperial fleet. Attention all loyal soldiers. Colonel Thaxmore and Commander Vexkar have been corrupted by human influence. I am assuming command. All ships will fire on the planet immediately. The humans and their guests watched in horror as 4 massive warships powered up their weapons. These were not the moderate officers who might listen to reason. These were fanatics who saw any deviation from Imperial doctrine as treason. We have to get out of here, Taman said, moving toward the emergency protocols. No, Hyunwoo said firmly. We stay. Are you insane? Kolvar stared at him. Those ships can level this entire continent. Maybe, Hyunwoo replied calmly. But running won't solve anything. It will just prove to the galaxy that humans are cowards. Better to be living cowards than dead heroes, Valnari said. Dr. Rena stood up from the table and walked to the communication console. General Thekran, this is Dr. Rena Yoon of the Human Research Outpost. Human, came the cold reply. You have 30 seconds to surrender before we turn your world to ash. I'm not surrendering, Rena said peacefully. I'm making you an offer. You are in no position to offer anything. I'm offering to save your people. There was a moment of silence. Explain. Rena activated the medical sensors throughout the outpost. General, your soldiers down here are injured. Not from fighting, but from stress and exhaustion. Your Valnari has a heart condition that's being aggravated by combat stimulants. Your Sergeant Kolvar has internal bleeding from an old wound that never healed properly. How do you know this? Kolvar asked in shock. Because I'm a doctor, Rena said simply. And doctors notice when people are hurting. On the screen, General Thekran's face was a mask of rage. You scan my soldiers, Without permission. I scan them because I care about them, Rena replied. Valnari, when did you last see a medical officer? The young soldier looked confused. 6 months ago during basic health review. Your heart is working too hard. You need treatment or you'll collapse within a week. Rena turned back to the screen. General, I can treat your people, all of them. The soldiers in your fleet are suffering from stress, poor nutrition, and untreated injuries. Let me help them. Why would you help Imperial soldiers? Because they're people, Minho said, standing beside Rena, and people deserve help when they're sick. Dr. Nari joined them at the console. General, what if I told you that everything your empire believes about humans is wrong? I would say you are lying to save your lives. Then let us prove it, Hyun-woo said. Let us show you what humans really do when faced with overwhelming force. You will surrender? No. Hyun-woo smiled. We will implement Protocol Shepard. What is Protocol Shepard? Commander Vexkar asked. Something we've been working on for years, Captain Taman explained. A defense strategy based on protection instead of destruction. Minho's fingers flew over his control panel. Around the outpost, hidden systems came online, but instead of weapons, they were shields. Massive energy barriers that began expanding outward from the research station. What are you doing? General Tekran demanded as the shields grew larger. Protecting everyone, Hyun-woo said, including your people. The shields continued to expand until they covered not just the human outpost, but also the landing zones, where moderate Thektar forces had set up defensive positions. The energy barriers were strong enough to deflect weapons fire from the hardline ships. You protect our soldiers? Kolvar asked in amazement. All soldiers, Rena corrected. Human, Thektar, Valani, everyone. On his command ship, General Tekran stared at his tactical display in confusion. The humans had created a defensive system that protected both their enemies and themselves equally. Sir, his weapons officer reported, we cannot fire on the outpost without hitting our own people. Then move our forces out of the shield zone. Sir, the moderate commanders are refusing to withdraw. They say they're staying to protect the humans. Thekran's face went pale. Half of his own fleet was now defending the people he had come to destroy. Down on the planet, Dr. Nari was broadcasting on all Imperial frequencies. Soldiers of the Thektar Empire, this is what humans really do. We don't conquer, we don't destroy, we protect, we heal. We bring people together instead of tearing them apart. Her words reached every ship in the fleet. Soldiers who had been preparing for battle instead heard stories of kindness and mercy. They saw their own comrades being treated with respect and care by the people they had been told were monsters. This is impossible, General Thekran muttered. Sir, his communications officer said quietly, we're receiving surrender requests from 3 of our own ships. Surrender requests? They're asking to join the moderate forces protecting the humans. As the hours passed, more and more Imperial soldiers chose to stand with the humans rather than fight them. By dawn, only 2 hardline ships remained loyal to General Thekran. Sir, Valnari said to Sergeant Kolvar as Dr. Rena finished treating her heart condition, what do we report to High Command? Kolvar looked around at the peaceful scene. Humans and Thektar working together, sharing meals, learning about each other's cultures. Keth was teaching a group of young soldiers how to create music with Valani crystal technology. We report the truth, he said finally. We report that we found something the Empire didn't expect. And what's that? Hope. Months later, the small research outpost had become the center of a new kind of diplomacy. Representatives from dozens of species came to learn about the humans who chose protection over conquest, understanding over fear. Keth served as the first Valani ambassador to humanity, helping to spread the truth about human nature throughout the galaxy. Commander Vexkar established the first joint human-Thektar colony, where former enemies worked together to build a better future. And when new species approached with stories of the terrifying human predators, Keth would smile and tell them the real truth. They don't open fire, he would say. They open their arms. The galaxy was slowly learning that humanity's greatest weapon was not their capacity for violence, but their absolute refusal to see any being as beyond redemption. They fought when they had to, but they preferred to heal. They could destroy, but they chose to build. In the end, the aliens had been right to fear humans. Not because they were monsters, but because they were something far more dangerous to an empire built on hatred and fear. They were living proof that there was always another way, and in a galaxy full of darkness, they were the light that showed others how to find hope.